Hello, this is Nick from Breaker Press Games, and today I want to talk about our new adventure, Cleft in the Mangled Hills. Alright, so this is going to be an overview video about Cleft in the Mangled Hills. If you're planning on playing this adventure, I would recommend waiting to watch this video because there will be spoilers. But this video is for judges so that you can find out what is this adventure, what's it for, why do you want to run it, and why is it awesome. So I'm going to break that all down for you. Let's talk about it. So adventure starts with map, rumor table, that sort of thing. And then we get into your overview and your content warning. So let's talk about the overview. What is this adventure? It is a 0 to first level adventure by me. 0 to first level, I've actually run it for 0 to second level and had no problems. That 0 to second level mixed party that I ran most recently, they actually had 12 to 14 characters between all of them, and it played fine. There's some of the threats do excessive amounts of damage, so a second level character is going to still feel a great degree of threat from certain of the encounters, whereas some of the encounters are easier. Long story short, it is it was originally designed to be a funnel, but it is very comfortably playable with a party of 12 to 16 0 levels, or 6 to 8 first levels, or a mix thereof. As I said, up to second level. And so the other thing is that this adventure was designed to play in 3 to 4 hours. So this is ideal for running in a convention environment. There are ways to extend it for campaign play. I'm going to make reference to Cacophonous Bandits, as well as other Stennard-related content as we talk about this adventure. But the adventure played straight out of this zine is meant to be played in 3 to 4 hours. Content warning. This adventure is a horror adventure. It's definitely in the vein of monster movie horror mixed with the two big influences that I like to reference are Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, because there's a lot of gribbly insect type stuff, as well as The Fly, because there is a full-on body transformation scene. Because there's cockroach people. So yeah, if you're into that sort of thing, awesome. If you're not into that sort of thing, understand that that's what this is full of. So, deal accordingly. The adventure starts with monsters and NPCs at the beginning of the book. I want you to have a firm understanding of what their special rules are, what their motivations are, so that as you get into the rooms, everything makes sense. There is context to why things are behaving the way that they are. There is also an elemental patron, Hashik. There are not full elemental patron rules. Expect that at some point down the road I will create a zine all about Hashik, because that's what I do. I like to plant seeds in various zines and then expand on that content later on. So expect Hashik to make an appearance again, particularly because most parties end up setting Hashik free. And we'll talk about that in the player and judge's introduction. So the player's introduction, what is the story? There's actually two concurrent storylines all having to do with this dungeon. One is that Lyra Lightfollower, who is coming to replace the vacancy at the Temple of Delvere in Stennard, sends a letter that she is traveling along the North Road through the Mangled Hills, known for its bandits, in order to take over the flock, to shepherd the flock at the Temple of Delvere in Stennard. But, of course, she sends the letter and then does not arrive. So some people in the town want you to go and find Lyra Lightfollower to bring light to the town. Simultaneously, Cathicic, who is a NPC wizard, half cockroach creature man. Cathicic is a very jealous and very controlling wizard that has grown in power and is trying to keep Hashik, whose power has been very weak for a long time, to keep Hashik bound within the dungeon. And so Hashik, as the torrential rains have increased Hashik's power, Hashik has been telepathically reaching out to sages, astronomers, chaotically aligned PCs. There's a whole host of different PC types that Hashik could be reaching out to and trying to communicate to them in their dreams in a watery voice that says, "Come to me, set me free, and I will grant you great power." And so there are two different motivations for why the players will want to go to the Mangled Hills in order to find these two different things, and that will create a tension within the party. I remember the very first group that I ran through this adventure, and Hashik was actually communicating with two of the players' characters, and they were literally knocking the chitinous book out of each other's hands in order to be the person to set Hashik free. So there is tension built there. Tension built between your lawful and your chaotically aligned players, and then there is just the tension of things getting more and more dire as the situation goes on. So that's set up in the player and judge's introduction. There's also a note about atmospheric bumps. Atmospheric bumps are things that happen periodically. Basically, any time the party stagnates, you're going to hit them with one of these atmospheric bumps to light a fire under their behinds and get them moving. The atmospheric bump tables are listed in escalating order. In Act 1, it's a D6 table. In Act 2, it's a D6 table. In Act 3, it's a D5 table. But each of those bumps are in escalating order because if you have a party that is going to stagnate a lot, you can basically just go in order. But if you have an experienced party that's just stagnating a little, just roll on the chart and hit them with whatever happens, because that should be enough to get them going. So then it breaks down each of the three acts: the impending storm, shelter from the rain, and the filling chamber, and it gives you advice on how to run each of those acts and what they're all about. The impending storm is what it sounds like. It's about an impending storm that is coming upon the PCs. It just so happens that the PCs are traveling along the North Road through the Mangled Hills. The Mangled Hills get their name because of the fact that there are frequent landslides or mudslides caused by the rains that change the shape of the hills on a consistent basis, even more consistent lately. And the PCs are halfway across this range of hills when all of a sudden the storm clouds roll in, and they are certain that there is going to be a heavy storm and there could be mudslides. So they want to get to safety. They find, as the name implies, a cleft in the Mangled Hills, essentially a trailhead that they can take to get to possible safety. Along that trailhead, they find evidence, or at the mouth of that trailhead, they find evidence that Lyra Lightfollower probably came through here. And so there is more impetus to climb this trailhead and get to high ground. This is set up in a 2-page spread, otherwise known as control panel format, so that everything that the judge needs is on this 2-page spread. That is how one of the design principles that I use in my adventures. Thank you, Ben Milton of Questing Beast, for pointing that out with a bunch of different adventures that he's reviewed, as well as Mothership, games like that with their adventures. I love the idea of control panel format and use it extensively. The other thing to know, as we go into Shelter from the Rain mentions a crashing sound and shaking earth. This happens every 15 minutes. You set a timer. And this is going to amplify the tension because no matter what the PCs are doing, whether they're standing around arguing, whether they're in combat, it does not matter. Time marches on. And every 15 minutes, there is a rumble and a crash and the sound of rushing water coming from somewhere. Where is it coming from? Well, it just so happens that the building that they find to shelter in is also adjacent to a large basin, kind of like a giant swimming pool that is catching the rain. And that rain is filling into a chamber that then causes a millstone to go around. And when the millstone gets to a certain point, it just floods into the chamber. So, shelter from the rain. The whole point of this encounter is to get the PCs into the dungeon. And so there's actually 3 areas, and there's 2 ways to get into the dungeon. One is a giant grate, and then the other is a ladder. And to get the PCs to go down into these things, as they stagnate, a bunch of giant cockroach creatures come from the wilderness or from the drain to the basin and drive the PCs to safety in the dungeon. And so that gets that all set up. There's also more additional clues that Lyra Lightfollower is likely been taken here. So then we get into the filling chamber proper. And then there's this chart right here. This chart shows every 15 minutes when you hear the crash and the rush, how high the water has gotten. And so first it starts off below the height of the passages, and then it's at the height of the passages, and then it's at ankle height, and then it's at calf height, and then it's at knee height, etc., etc. And so there is now the tension of the water level is constantly climbing. And so they've gone into this dungeon because it's going to, 1, lead them to Lyra Lightfollower. 2, if they've been hearing the watery voice is beckoning them down into this drain. And then 3, this is where safety is from the giant cockroach creatures, except that down below is a half human, half cockroach cult. And so down within the filling chamber, the water is filling, and this was designed on a 5-room dungeon principle with all of the rooms being interconnected in some way. There's actually a stream, kind of looks like an avocado, but it is a stream moat thing that goes around in a circle, and so you can go into any of the rooms by swimming, or you can go into this central room that leads you to those other rooms. The central room is deliberately, the explanation gives you sights, smells, sounds that are coming from the other rooms, so that when you get into that central room, you can make an educated choice as to what direction you want to go in. Or, as I like to point out to judges, so that you know that this is going to happen, I love splitting the party, especially when they do it all on their own. And what happens is some of them smell something in one direction, hear a sound in another. Oh, I want to go towards the glowing lights. I want to investigate the giant millstone that's going around. I want to go towards the chittering sound. And so then everybody splits up and goes in a different direction. They cover more ground, but they also die more deaths. And so this is going to cause the chaos to ensue very quickly. The other thing to note is that there is bioluminescent algae scattered around to illuminate. As soon as somebody lights a torch in the presence of a water cult, bad things are going to happen because they don't like fire. So keep all of these things in mind as a judge. So yeah, that is everything that builds up to, I'm not going to go room by room, but I will point out that each room has its requisite map. It has the stat blocks for the creatures that are within it. Oh, here's a gruesome piece by Francesco Accordi. And then ultimately, it builds up to the big boss fight, which is Kathikik is performing a ritual to keep Hashik bound. Hashik has been talking to the PCs to try and get them to set her free. And then, of course, Lyra Lightfollower is helping to power the ritual that Kathikik is trying to cast, because she is tied down and about to be sacrificed by the Rainwalkers, aka the Scuttlekin, the half-human, half-cockroach hybrid creatures. And so all of this ultimately results in an explosion of action at the very end, and it is just... it's a party. It is a really tense, exciting adventure that will result in people going every which way and just chaos ensuing. Most often, it's a mixed bag because they release Hashik, the patron, into the world in most cases, which of course she is a chaotic patron, and so bad things should likely ensue as a result of that, but some of them will have the ability to bond with that patron. But additionally, they will have set Lyra Lightfollower free, hopefully, so that she can bring some good to the town of Stennard. A little bit. Just a little bit. And then the adventure ends with an encounter table on the North Road. The weather and moonlight tables that I like to include in a lot of my adventures just because they're handy. And then on the back page is a bunch of hireling/NPC characters that you can use to backfill the party, particularly if there's deaths. I specifically point out that in the Molting Chamber and in the Cult Chamber, these are great places to find people imprisoned that the PCs can set free to bolster the party if they've taken heavy casualties. And finally, as I wrap this up, I want to talk about convention play. So in conventions, because of the fact that with campaign play, people tend to, they want to preserve their characters, they're more cautious, and so there will be character deaths, but there will be less character deaths. I think when I ran this for my last group, there were like 6 to 8 character deaths out of 12 to 14 characters, and a couple of those deaths were hirelings that they just kind of like, let's send Core Bloodblade to go do XYZ, and then Core Bloodblade turns into paste. But that being said, in convention play, when people push, pull, and prod everything, the last time that I ran this adventure at GaryCon, there were 18 character deaths. So understand, particularly if you're at GaryCon and you saw a bald man howling and a guy with a mustache come over and tell him to quiet down, it was because I was running this adventure and there was just chaos and death everywhere, and it was hilarious. So that being said, this is Cleft in the Mangled Hills. I think that if you like all the things that I described, you will love running this adventure. It is a great time. If you want to extend it for campaign play, I do highly recommend picking up Stennard Courier Volume 1. That gives you the town setting that is a good place to set this up, and hire some hirelings and buy some equipment and all that good stuff. There is also Cacophonous Bandits. Cacophonous Bandits is a troop of bandits that are set up in the Mangled Hills. And so if you want to extend things, you can have the PCs encounter these bandits before or after. And if you have them encounter them before, they can set up that they can confirm that they've seen the Rainwalkers walking through the Mangled Hills, and they may have seen them dragging a woman in white and blue robes. So this can be a handy thing in campaign play. And then finally, I want to point out that I am about to launch a Kickstarter, Sorceress Rites of the Elements. It is about elementalist wizards. It is going to have the character class, the Elementalist. It is going to have at least 16 spells, 4 from each of the 4 elements. And each element is going to be guaranteed to have a offensive, defensive, and utilitarian spell. That way, you will have a good basis for each of the characters. Of course, there's always, Flaming Hands and all of the other spells that are in the DCC rulebook that also have those things. There will be a chart that says, hey, these spells are good for X, Y, and Z. That is Sorcerous Rites of the Elements. It's going to launch tomorrow, July 31st, 2023, and it will run for 2 weeks through the beginning of August. Thank you for supporting indie games and indie game designers. I look forward to hearing everybody's stories about how everything went in the Mangled Hills. Thank you again, and have a great weekend. I'll talk to you all soon.